Good evening, and thank you for joining me. I'm Joe Carbonetta, and this is Arroyo Live. This program, which is produced by and through the facilities of Pasadena Media, was created with an idea to help inform and restore a sense of both connection and understanding to those experiencing many of the negative effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. More recent events have helped to underscore the need for a more compassionate, more considerate approach to every aspect, every person in our society. And so it remains the continued focus of this program to try to help bring together and strengthen our community through informative and meaningful conversation. This program is live if you're watching on Tuesday, September the 1st, and there will be an opportunity for you to call in with your questions or comments later on in the program. You can share them with us anytime at arroyolive@pasadenamedia.org. According to the Census Bureau, the U.S. had 40.3 million residents aged 65 or older in the 2010 census. As of July 2019, the number was more than 54 million, and it's expected to go even higher when the 2020 census is completed. Older Americans now account for more than 16% of the nation's population, making the needs of senior citizens an ever more urgent concern for states and communities across the country. This evening, we look at how COVID-19 is affecting the senior community. For this evening's conversation, I'm joined by Miss Akila Gibbs, Executive Director of the Pasadena Senior Center, and Miss Peggy Buchanan, Executive Director of Pasadena Village. Thank you both for joining me. If I can ask each of you to please take a moment to tell our viewers a little more about yourselves. Akila, let's begin with you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Akila Gibbs, and as he said, I'm the Executive Director at the Pasadena Senior Center. One of the big things is that this is our 60th year in the community. And of course, we had all kinds of events planned out, all kinds of celebration, and as luck would have it, of course, everything now is gone virtual. We serve about 10,000 seniors walk through our doors every year. We have about, on a normal basis, 54 classes a week. Now we're doing 33 classes a week on Zoom. And I think we've really turned our programming around so that we can serve more older adults on Zoom. One of the things I did want to comment about something that you said was that actually Pasadena is aging at a faster rate. With the last census, you only have to be 50 to come to the senior center, and 38% of the population was eligible to come. So we're aging at a little bit of a faster rate than most communities, which makes what Peggy does and what I do very important to this community.
All right. Well, Akila, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Peggy, your turn.
Thanks for having me. I'm Peggy Buchanan. I'm the director of the Pasadena Village, and we are a nonprofit connecting members with each other and to community resources that are necessary to continue as older adults to be active, independent, and involved in our community. It's a part of a national movement. There are over 300 villages, and with about that many forming right now because of the exponentially growing numbers of seniors. It's a way to redefine aging. And happily, we are at the table on our governor's commission task force to define an aging plan for the state of California. And the village system will be a piece of what works for taking care of seniors in our communities. So it's exciting because it will take a lot of different systems to take care of all these numbers. So it's, we look for community-based solutions. We use volunteers and members. We are really staying connected through technology, which is amazing because some of our members were very resistant. Anyway, I'm looking forward to discussing other things.
All right. Well, again, thank you both for joining me this evening. Akila, I'd like to start out by mentioning or going perhaps more in depth in something that you just mentioned a few minutes ago, and that's that in the Pasadena area, the rate of aging Americans is at about 30%, which places it roughly double what the national population is. And I'm wondering, is that a recent occurrence, or is it because the population in Pasadena has remained the same for so long that we're just seeing the population in Pasadena aging?
Well, I think that's it. One of the things is that, Pasadena is one of those wonderful communities that you can get your arms around, and everything you want and need, you can find in Pasadena. So people tend to stay there, and people like to age in place. I mean, if given a choice, people will want to age in place. So they like to stay in the community that they've raised their children in, that maybe they were raised in. So that's one of the reasons. The other reason is because housing. I mean, there are not a lot of young families that can afford to buy or rent in Pasadena. And I think that's why you're seeing a drop in kids in schools. I mean, in 2010, young people went down by 3%, and older adults went up by 10%. So it's going to be a faster growing problem for us in Pasadena.
All right. And this question is to both of you. What are some of the challenges that are currently affecting the senior community? And I don't want to leave out COVID-19 as one of those challenges.
That to me is the largest challenge at this very point in time, because it is affecting everybody's life, and particularly older adults who live alone. So it's a huge factor. I think housing is a huge factor. Nutrition is a huge factor. Healthcare is a huge factor. And right here in Pasadena, absolutely elsewhere, but right here, they are really big issues. I think that the isolation factor of our pandemic is right this very moment the most critical issue facing our seniors.
Akila, was wondering if you had any thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, I would most definitely agree with everything that Peggy said. I mean, cost of living is a big problem here. The average cost of a 2-bedroom apartment here is $2,500, and so and transportation is really big. We have a transportation program where we give out taxi vouchers to help people get to their doctor appointments and shopping and things like that. Food insecurity is huge. It's really huge. And that has risen its ugly head during COVID. We deliver about 75 bags of food a day. We drop them off to people. And like Peggy said, social isolation. I mean, we have been calling all of our members, and we are finding people who are really, really, really lonely, but also people who are hungry. I mean, we found a man who hadn't eaten in 4 days, and we started to give him, drop food off for him. But food insecurity is really a big problem, and people look at Pasadena and think, oh, it's so affluent. Well, 14% of the senior population in Pasadena lives below the poverty line. So there's a lot of need out there that people just don't see.
All right. Well, for decades now, we have seen the lifespan of the average American on the increase. And that has largely been attributed to advances in medicine and a better understanding about health in general. Certainly the foods that we eat, how much exercise we get. Most recently, there's been a lot of focus on things that we can do to improve our minds as the years go by. But obviously, this increased lifespan presents a great deal of challenges, which is part of what we're discussing this evening. So one of the big questions, since we were talking about this on a local level as well as across the country, is the city prepared to deal with the ever increasing number of older Americans? And by extension, is the country prepared to deal with this?
No and no.
No. I would agree.
No and no. No, they're not.
They don't have a clue.
They don't. I mean, and it's been coming for a long time. We've been reading about it for a long time. And I mean, we're better off than some countries. We are. We're better off than Italy. We're much better off than China, because they don't even have senior centers or a village or any of that stuff. Their family structure has changed now, so you don't have people taking care of their seniors like they used to. But so we're doing better, but that's not saying a lot. They are not ready. And, you know, people don't realize that the senior center is a nonprofit. They think we belong to the city of Pasadena, but we don't. So there's not a lot of programs that the city pays for that takes care of older adults. So no, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. Peggy and I agree on that.
we totally agree on that, and have served on the senior commission together, which I'm not sure is of any consequence or not. But I do think that our city, well, every city, but because we're talking about Pasadena, we really have to have a better plan for seniors, including food and homelessness and healthcare and how to reach those isolated, because isolation causes all sorts of health problems, which then put people in the hospital, and it's huge. So I really would hope, especially having our own health department, which is rare for cities, that we could get together and pretty quickly and devise a concrete plan that would have some tangible steps to take.
And that the health effects on isolation, and there's some statistic that says isolation with older adults is the equivalent of smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. So that's how bad it is. And the other thing Peggy mentioned was homelessness. While in 50 and below, the homeless rate is dropping. 50 and above, the homeless rate is
rising.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not unusual for us to have homeless people drop in all the time. We have a food pantry to pick up food.
Well, certainly there are a myriad of issues here to address and discuss this evening. I'd like to focus on healthcare, if only for one more moment. Certainly there has been a lot of discussion, as everyone's aware, obviously, as we age, our need to seek additional healthcare continues to rise. Unfortunately, it's the nature of growing old. In recent years, there's been a lot of discussion about the ever-escalating costs of healthcare and how there are fewer choices when it comes to insurance. Certainly, the Obamacare initiative made a very welcome change for a lot of people. Medicare obviously has continued to struggle. There has been ongoing concern about a lack of funding. But how is that affecting the older American population now? Are we seeing more or less health care for our aging population?
I think right now Medicare is working well. I think people who can afford a supplemental plan obviously are better off than those who just have Medicare. But from what I see, from where I stand, I think it's working. Now, if there's any changes or cutbacks, that's going to have a devastating effect. I think the thing that is most detrimental to older adults is medication, because the cost of medication keeps going up, and there's that donut hole. And if you're changing medications, it might not fit into whatever formula that you've chosen. So I think that makes it hard. And what I don't see people having a difficulty accessing medical care. I see them having difficulty buying prescription drugs. And a lot of people that we see are cutting their prescription drugs in half just to eat. And that seems to be, for now, a bigger issue than access.
Yeah, I agree with that. Although I think there's an increasing issue with the middle class who do have Medicare, but perhaps don't have a supplement and do not qualify for any other subsidies.
Right.
And they won't forever because they're fortunate enough, but they're not in the level to be able to pay for really what they need. And again, same as Akila said, people forfeiting medications to eat. Absolutely. We've seen that. One of our members who is a absolutely drop dead statuesque woman who was a school teacher and brilliant. Recently, her daughter called and said that she was the doctor said she was undernourished. This is a woman who you would never expect out of.
Well, we have heard almost from the beginning the fact that the older American population was at increased risk as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, right up there with those people that are immunocompromised. And I'm wondering if we have seen a drop in older Americans seeking additional medical attention, even for some of their more what would normally be considered routine visits, as a result of fear of the pandemic.
Absolutely, we are. I have several members who have said that they have never said they wanted to go to the dentist, but they really want to go have their teeth cleaned, but they're staying away because of fear. And same with other routine checkups, which can be problematic if you have a heart problem that you can't see what's going on. Yes, I know a lot of them are staying away because of fear.
Yeah, I agree. I sit on the board for Huntington Hospital, and one of the things that they're worried about right now is that, we had these people coming in just for rehabilitation for strokes. And now that's not happening. But another side effect of that is elder abuse. And I just wrote an article about it a couple of, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. We are seeing more and more elder abuse because caregivers are being stretched to the limit. And if you have someone that has Alzheimer's or who really needs a lot of help, they get short patient and they're staying in the house all day. So, and they're not seeing doctors, so doctors aren't observing them. They're not coming to the senior center, so people aren't observing the fact that they're being either physically abused or emotionally abused. And the other thing that's gone up is attributed to COVID are scams. Yeah. There is a lot of senior scams out there. And we tell people, don't give, and I'm sure you do too, Peggy, do not give any of your personal information to anyone. And if you have a question about something, just tell them, look, let me do some checking and I'll call you back. And call us, call one of us. and find out about it before you give out your social security number or your address or your birth date or any of that stuff.
You're absolutely right. Those are huge issues. And I actually heard something this morning on NPR going to work about the people who are following up with COVID, the tracers. And there's a lot of scam apparently going on with that. And older adults are so easily, I don't know why, but they are susceptible, really hard.
I think they're susceptible because they're lonely. Anybody that'll talk to them. Right? Anybody.
Well, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Well, another one of the interesting issues with healthcare currently is longer-term care, especially for older Americans. There has been a lot of discussion in recent years about the ever-escalating costs of placing a senior in an assisted living facility where there is full-time medical care. In addition to that, in recent times, we have seen several of these facilities be shut down because of poor or almost non-existent protocols when it comes to dealing with COVID-19. As a result of that, there are a lot of seniors who are living with family members at home. And this, of course, presents its own unique challenges, not the least of which, obviously, is maintaining that round-the-clock care, but also the concerns, again, for COVID-19. I'm wondering if you ladies have any thoughts on any of that.
I think we've been really fortunate in Pasadena. The surrounding communities or retirement communities have a pretty good track record, and we are so fortunate that they are equipped with and have protocols in place. So in our area, we're pretty lucky.
Yeah.
But it is a huge, huge factor.
Yeah, I think outside of Pasadena, I think it's a bigger problem than it is inside of Pasadena. I mean, if you think about our nursing homes, there hasn't been a big breakout there. And so I think we're doing well with that. I think the fact that we have a health department, we have an ombudsman program that checks out all of these facilities, and we're doing well in that department.
Okay. I was going to say, though, it seems to me that I believe there was at least one senior care facility that was shut down in the Pasadena area earlier on in the pandemic. But I'm wondering what the reaction of the senior community is to the larger issue of assisted living.
Well, I mean, I really honestly think, and I think Peggy will agree with me, if given a choice, people want to age in place. They want to stay in their home. I think they'll do anything they can to stay in their home, which, that's why a lot of people come to the senior center to exercise and take classes and keep themselves busy. That's why a lot of people belong to the village, because they have a lot of activities and stuff that keep people engaged. So if given a choice, I would say, and Peggy can jump in on this, I would say probably 80% of people would want to age in place.
I think it might even be higher. And obviously, a lot of people won't be able to, but then it becomes a cost factor. There's a very small percentage that can afford the type of retirement care, assisted living that they or their families would want for them. And so the choice is then the family becomes the caregiver, or they bring in care that perhaps is not screened. It's a big dilemma, but Akila is absolutely right. People want to stay in their own homes.
Mm-hmm.
is the pushback from so much of the members of the community across the nation with regards to the idea of social distancing and even more so the idea of being forced to wear a mask, is that a concern for the senior community?
It hasn't been for our members. First of all, they are really staying home as much as possible. They're very responsible. They care about others. They are masking and distancing. I really think they are absolutely wanting to help their fellow person and help the community.
But are there concerns on behalf of the seniors the senior citizens in the community that the younger generation does not seem to be concerned and does not want to wear masks? Does that concern the senior community?
I've heard some seniors say that, but I mean, just like Peggy said, most of our older adults stay at home, and if they need something, they call us. Now, the senior center is open because the city of Pasadena deemed us essential. So we do have homeless seniors that come in. They always have on masks. We check their temperature before they come in and to pick up food, or people come to pick up food primarily, or they'll use the computer room. And most of them say that the people that they run into are compliant with masks. So I haven't heard any complaints about it, really.
Okay.
I do know, though, that a couple of our members have said that, sadly, they were absolutely not going to see their grandkids and or children, even though they live in close proximity, because those grandchildren, who are probably late teens, that age, are not. They are masking. They are trying to do their job, but they're still socializing with friends and not respecting the whole protocol, and so they feel like they can't risk it.
Well, that's certainly one of the terrible side effects of this COVID-19 pandemic. To our viewers at home right now, we've reached about the halfway mark in the show, and that's traditionally the time where we open up the phone lines. So if you have questions or comments at home and would like to join the conversation this evening, you can call us at 951-356-6882, and you can share your questions or comments with us. As I mentioned at the top of the program, you can always share them with us at Arroyo Live at PasadenaMedia.org. Okay, well, again, Akila Gibbs and Peggy Buchanan, thank you so much for joining me this evening. Akila, I think we'll begin with you. I was hoping that you might talk a little bit about some of the services that are available through the Senior Center.
Well, I mean, I'll talk about what we offer ordinarily, and then now with COVID. I mean, we have everything from art classes to photography classes to strength training to a gym to a grief counseling, food distribution. We're the largest food distribution site for older adults in Los Angeles County. We partner with the food bank, and we give out about 400 parcels of food in conjunction with the food bank every month. And we're going to do it this Friday. We're doing it again. We have ordinarily about 55 classes a week. We see ourselves as a one-stop place for seniors. So if you have a problem, you come to us and we figure out how to solve it. Now with COVID, we have a phone bank, and we're calling all of our members, and we're calling them as much as we can. I mean, we're we have about 3,000 members, so we keep calling on a rotating basis just to do welfare checks. We're delivering food. We have about 33 classes online, primarily exercise classes, but our book club is online. We have a social hour that's online, and that's been really interesting. I have a coffee with Akila every other Thursday, and I meet with 4 people who sign up for it. And a lot of people, oddly enough, want these things to keep going after we get back into the center. We still offer our computer, not our computer classes, but our computers are there because a lot of people are having to do things online and they don't have a computer at home. So they come to the senior center and we help them with that. So that's primarily it.
All right. And if somebody wanted to take advantage of some of those services that you offer, how would they get in touch with you at the senior center?
Well, you can call us and go online. I mean, we've redone our entire website, so we have a lot of COVID tips online. We can tell you where to go and get food. We can tell you how to order food. We have something on there about scams, elder abuse. There's a lot of information on our website, and it's PasadenaSeniorCenter.org. PasadenaSeniorCenter.org. And, we're always there to help.
All right. Fantastic. And we will make sure that you provide that information again toward the end of the show, just in case somebody tunes in late. Peggy, the same question to you. What services are available through the Pasadena Village?
People always say, well, aren't you and the senior center in competition? And we're not at all. I look at us as being mutually helpful and important to our senior community. Many of our members actually are involved at the senior center. And a couple of the senior center members are involved with us. We also offer classes, and our big thrust is on people forming a meaningful community that will help them age and redefine the way they can age in a better way. So the emphasis is really on building community. But we do offer the other things. We have had about 100 things a month, and most of our members, we spent about 3 weeks training our members on how to use Zoom. Not all of our members have computers, so we've devised a call system with those members, and some of them who don't want to anyway. But about 70% are joining us on Zoom, and we have less exercise things than we do have discussion groups. We have a lot of support groups. We have a caregiver support group. A lot of our members are caregivers. We have a coping with COVID-19 group that has been very, very successful, and people share methods that help them cope. We have public policy discussion groups. We have critical issue discussion groups. We also have educational programs and fun stuff too. So we are very, very busy, happily. And we also have call groups who are staying in touch. We have several members who are extremely isolated, and they get 2 to 3 calls a week. We're lucky that we have enough volunteers to do that. It's an incredible opportunity to form friendships and build new relationships. Many of the people, they're all so interesting and from very different walks of life and places. and that friendships they're such strange bedfellows, but they're really wonderful. So, and we broker, we're really a resource broker. I would send people to the senior center's website for their resources, because their resource web page is fabulous. We use the Huntington Senior Care Network a lot. We also, we're not a service provider, we're a support. So we try to pair people with the services they need.
Okay. And if somebody wanted to reach out and contact you at Pasadena Village, how would they go about doing that?
Well, they could email me at Peggy at pasadenavillage.org also. They can call, which is 626-765-6037. Love to hear from them.
Okay. Well, we thank you for that. And again, we'd like to try and get that information in again toward the close of this evening's show, just in case anyone didn't get an opportunity to write something down. But moving on in the discussion, so far we've talked a lot about physical health, but there's another very important aspect, and that's mental health. And the two actually go hand in hand, as we're all aware that mental health can positively or negatively affect physical health and vice versa. I'm wondering if you ladies would take a few moments to discuss the issues that seniors are facing now, especially in the wake of the COVID pandemic and the isolation that comes with it, as far as mental health is concerned, and what resources might be available for those situations and the people who are afflicted by them.
Well, a lot of seniors are, and Peggy said this earlier, they're having a tough time. I mean, they're lonely, and I think that's what makes what the village offers and also what the senior center offers so vital and so important at this time, because there's always someone to talk to. And that is a huge component. We have a program we've had for about 27 years called Telephone Reassurance, and we've done it, like I said, for 27 years. And we have called every day, and this is before COVID, seniors who are homebound, who are shut in. And most of these people, if we didn't call them, they wouldn't have anybody to call them. And so I think right now it is of the utmost importance. And I tell everybody every time I speak, call your mother, call your father, call your aunt, that little auntie of yours that was so nice to you when you were growing up. Now is the time to check on your neighbors, to reach out, to wonder if the little old lady down the street is doing well, and just call. So it's very important. It's really tough because older adults are not leaving their homes. They're staying inside because they don't want to get COVID. They know they're in the high risk category. So I think both services that we offer, the village and the senior center, is doing a great job of reaching out. But obviously we can't reach everyone. So we hope tonight people will reach out to us. And I hope tonight that someone will see us and say, I better check on my aunt who lives in Buffalo. Doesn't matter where they live. Call and check, because it means the world to them. It really does mean the world to them. And it is so important, particularly right now, to check on your friends and family who are older adults.
Well, and dovetailing on that is helping mental health. To provide someone the opportunity to talk or express their worries or just say something.
Right. Yeah.
It's a huge relief for people. I have members who call me and say, I just really need to spend a few minutes telling you what I did today, because they have to, for mental health.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, there was some report that came out, I think it was in the New York Times over the weekend, that not just with older adults, depression, anxiety, and suicide right now across the board is sky high. I mean, my husband's a mental health professional, and he is really busy. You know, he's a licensed clinical psychologist. And there are more people right now who are really suffering from isolation and anxiety. This is a tough time. It really is.
So is it safe to say that one thing that all of us can do in the community is just be willing to lend an ear once in a while, perhaps, you know, as you were saying, say hello to an elderly relative we haven't spoken to in some time, but also be prepared to listen for a little while.
Absolutely. I mean, and check on them a number of times. I mean, your friends, your neighbors, your relatives, it means the world to them. It really does. I just can't tell you how important it is. Because they're just sitting there by themselves, looking at TV all day.
Okay. If they have one.
Yeah, that's true, if they have one.
Well, another issue that is becoming even more pressing in recent times is transportation. Certainly, there's been a lot of concern about the various methods of public transportation for obvious reasons, the potential for the spread of the COVID-19 virus. Recently, we've seen moves by the federal government to reclassify independent contractors, which has threatened to affect transportation methods where a person can simply call and get a ride. How is this affecting the senior community?
Well, for my senior community, I would say not too much, because most of our members don't use those contractors because they can't afford it. I would guess that's true with senior center members also. They use public transportation, they use relatives, they use Dial-A-Ride. Many of them have actually increased their use of Dial-A-Ride in Pasadena because they're offering free services, and they're really pretty darn good. But I mean, the buses and others, they're not using because of the fear of being together with people. The village happens to have a lot of volunteer drivers. So we are still giving people rides we used to give rides anywhere, whether you wanted to go visit your friend or go to a movie, but now it's pretty limited to doctor's appointments and getting things delivered to people. So most of our members don't use those contractors, but it's horrible for the general population.
Yeah.
Akila, you initially seemed as though you had some comments.
Well, I mean, a lot of our members, they're ambulatory, the ones that come on a regular basis, and they, a lot of our members still drive. We have a transportation program where we give out tap cards. You know, we refill tap cards, and we have taxi vouchers. And before COVID, we had kind of a class where we instructed people on how to use Lyft and those kinds of forms of transportation. Of course, now people aren't using that. If they call us now, we figure it out for them, but they're not using public transportation, just like Peggy said. I mean, they're just they're nervous to do that. So a lot of people are just staying home primarily.
Okay, well, Peggy, you also mentioned earlier that you rely, or your organization relies on volunteers to help give people rides. But what about, there are actually so many organizations that do, especially these service-based organizations that rely heavily on volunteers in order to be able to carry out all of their mission. What is happening to the volunteer population as a result of COVID-19? And is that negatively affecting the services that are available for seniors?
It is to some degree, because a lot of our volunteers are older adults. So those people are not running errands. They're not driving others because they are in this bracket of people who will be worse affected. We happen to have a lot of younger volunteers, thankfully. And we've had people reach out to us. You know, we've had a couple doctors who actually are run Boy Scout troops who have organized the Boy Scouts to deliver food and things like that. And they, as a doctor, have trained them and provided them with the necessary tools. So again, we have limited to just essentials. So that's the big difference, is it's just essential now.
All right. And Akila, do you have any thoughts on this one as well?
Well, you know, first of all, we couldn't keep our doors open if we didn't have volunteers. So we heavily depend on volunteers. A lot of them aren't coming, and that's sad too, because a lot of them are older adults, and they came to the senior center every single day to work in the library or to work in the fitness center or work in the coffee bar or work at the front desk or, you know, a number of things that we had them to do. We still have volunteers. I mean, you know, we're making phone calls every day to all of our members. So we have a lot of a volunteer bank that's doing that. We have some of our volunteers that are delivering food, but a lot of them aren't coming. And we have some volunteers right now that are beautifying the outside grounds. You know, they're planting and doing that kind of thing. And it's good for them because, you know, a lot of the volunteers that we have are retired and they want to keep busy. So we have had some that come to done some planting and that kind of stuff. And it's outside and they wear a mask so they feel relatively safe doing that.
Okay. Well, that brings us to another issue that is certainly of concern for everyone, but even more so for the aging population. And that is the weather, especially here in the Southwest, you know, Southern California and the states that are close by. We've seen an almost unprecedented heat wave this particular season. And there are always medical concerns and challenges that are presented whenever the temperature climbs that high. But in addition to that, we have COVID-19 and the orders to maintain social distance, which has affected the ability of many communities to open and operate cooling centers for folks that either don't have or simply cannot afford air conditioning. What kind of problems is this creating for the senior community?
I haven't heard of any problems. I really haven't. I mean, when we do our welfare checks, we remind people to hydrate and we ask them if they have a fan. But in other heat waves, we've noticed that a lot of people stay home and they either have air conditioning or they have fans. So I haven't heard of anybody fallen ill because of that. You know, we advise them to drink lots of liquids and to call us if they have a problem. But for me right now, I haven't seen anything.
I have the same as Akila. We used to have people come in to our offices because we have air conditioning, but we don't do that right now. But none of our members have had health issues because of that right now.
And you know, a lot of people as they get older, actually they're cooler.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's amazing sometimes they have on sweaters and stuff and it's hot.
Right.
So I don't see it. I really don't see it as we haven't seen a problem with it yet.
Okay, well, that's certainly good to know. Another important issue that has become front and center in the news recently is concerns about evictions and foreclosures for that matter. And there has been a moratorium placed on those things, at least here in California. But we've seen that initiative expire and then get renewed, and of course there's concern about its eventual expiration again, and the aftermath, what comes afterward. Are there seniors that are concerned about these issues, about housing, how to pay for housing, and what can be done about those things?
Well, we have a number of pro bono attorneys that work with us that we refer the seniors to. And that's really always been a problem, because you'll have an older adult who's rented a place for a very long time, and they know, because of rent control, they haven't raised the rent, so they try to get them out of there. There have been some people who've called recently and said that their landlord is hassling them. And like I said, we work with a number of attorneys that will write a letter or make a call. Sometimes we've I've called landlords before. So, but there is a little bit of an increase in that. I haven't seen a lot, but I have had some calls where people have said, my landlord is trying to evict me or wants to raise the rent, sky high or something like that. And we jump in and try to help.
Okay, same question over to you, Peggy.
I would ditto Akila, and I think a couple of people I know have made the decision to move and live with a relative in another state. It will and is a challenge. It will be, and it is.
And this is probably something that we can expect to see more of as the older population continues to increase. Is that fair to say?
I think it's fair. I know that California legislation was passed last night to keep it through February, the protection, but it'll increase.
And certainly there is concern about what happens when that protection does finally expire, as many landlords will then be able to demand the quote unquote back rent. And the last that I was aware of such legislation, they hadn't really ironed out the details of how they would be able to demand repayment for the period of time where no payment was made.
You're right. And it's like an endless pit. It's like the money pit, because if you can save right now by not paying your full rent, you've just got it compiling.
Right. We have had seniors that have opted not to pay. Most of them are too afraid to do that.
Right.
Most of them will go without medication or food, but they will pay that rent. So I think not paying the rent is probably, because they're still on the same fixed income. And what happens is that a lot of seniors, their kids were helping them, like buy food and that kind of thing. And now the kids are out of a job, so they can't help. So that's where we come in and give them food. But it's been my experience, they will sacrifice everything to pay rent. That is the last thing. I think
you're right.
Yeah, that they will cut. We've had seniors that have utilities turned off, but they still have a roof over their head. So they're not opting to not pay rent.
Are there?
Yeah, I would agree.
Are there services available for, with the utility companies for especially for the elderly community, if they're having difficulty making ends meet? Are there programs that they can become involved in that can help them?
Absolutely, and most seniors don't know that. I had a call from a woman. She was a senior, and her neighbor was a senior. And the neighbor was stringing an extension cord through her window to the next lady's window to keep her one lamp on and her refrigerator on. And she had done it, for a couple of months. And the woman called and said, I'm on a fixed income too. Is there anything you can do to help? And she was, I think, about 4 months behind. And yeah, we can make arrangements with the companies. And usually what they do is they'll forgive a couple of months.
Right.
And they'll reduce, and then they'll put them on a small payment plan. So, that's what we've done.
Okay. Well, Before we run out of time, and we only have a few minutes left, I did want to try and get the contact information for both of your organizations out there again. Akila, if you wouldn't mind telling folks again how to contact the Pasadena Senior Center.
Well, they can call 626-795-4331, or they can go to our website, pasadenaseniorcenter.org, or I think those are the two best ways. I was going to give my email, but it's so long that it's better for them to just go to the website or to call the phone number.
Okay, fantastic. And Peggy, of course, for you as well, could you give us the contact information for Pasadena Village?
Same thing, the website, pasadenavillage.org, or my email is easier because it's just Peggy at pasadenavillage.org, or 626-765-6037.
Right. That is wonderful information. Thank you so much for that. In the brief minute and a half that we have left, I was wondering if there are any other organizations that you ladies can think of that might also be able to assist the senior community.
Oh gosh, there are so many. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, Senior Care Network, I would say in the community, the big three are the Village, Senior Care Network, and Pasadena Senior Center. I mean, the Pasadena Senior Center sees more seniors than any organization in Pasadena. There are other organizations that primarily will give them food, but in terms of services and accessing care, I think it's the Village, the Pasadena Senior Center, and Senior Care Network.
Okay.
Definitely. Yeah. And they all have different varied resources, and we all work together. We all have the same end care.
And you know what? And I should say, I don't want to keep the Salvation Army, because they do have a good program, and they even have housing and provide food. So I would throw the Salvation Army in that mix too.
All right. Well, those are some wonderful resources. Thank you very much for that information. Miss Akila Gibbs, Executive Director of the Pasadena Senior Center, and Miss Peggy Buchanan, Executive Director of Pasadena Village. Thank you, ladies, both so much for joining me this evening. I'm afraid to see addressed in our discussions. You can email them to us at arroyolive@pasadenamedia.org, and we may include them in a future broadcast. Until next time, this has been Arroyo Live. I'm Joe Carbonetta. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great night.